Good evening, folks. I'm back again. Yeah, I swear you're going to get sick of me eventually. But we're here for another evening Q&A live. So, yeah, here we go. So, not got too much to report, really. It's been getting a bit testing at the minute with Koi Wholesale, I'm not going to lie. Shipments, pond space, weather, it needs to warm up outside. It's getting really tedious now. We've got so many empty ponds that we just can't use because it's too cool. We can't get fish out into them without settling them down properly. So we've had to adapt a couple of bigger ponds with heaters on so we can make the process really gradual. But what we would do, you know, kind of almost overnight is now taking 2 weeks to do. Crazy. So really slowing stuff down. And yeah, it seems like we're ready to really get things kick-started and fired up. Although I say that, you know, it just goes on seemingly 12 months a year, but this time of year is crucial. I want to start lining ponds up, you know, getting final selections done, growing ponds set up, shipments coming in. So all been a lot slower than usual, but got a shipment arriving tomorrow, having said that. So some new batches of Tosai coming in, which will be nice. And yeah, we carry on. But I've got obviously tonight Q&A. We're going with the live questions, so please start firing anything in you want to discuss or go over. I'm going to make a plea to you all as well that anybody out there watching, it would be very nice to get some different guests on for the Q&A to make it a bit more dynamic, the conversation a bit more dynamic, rather than me just chatting to you all for an hour, because it's nice to get into some real life scenarios and actually, you know, pick them apart and try and get to the bottom of it, you know. So if you're out there and you've got a conundrum or something you'd really like to go over in detail, then please feel free to get in touch and we'll get you booked in, you know, even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes. It's not all that daunting. It's just a conversation with me that a few people are watching at the same time, but it's really not all that scary. So if you are out there, it would be great to get that going. And then, yeah, just another plea from me, because, you know, we've been digging really deep into the analytics and on all our YouTube stuff at the minute. And for Koi Wholesale and Koi Talk, obviously, the only reason we ever really started this was to help educate you guys, really enhance and improve the hobby for you as much as possible, whether you're new, experienced, or whoever. So, yeah, and the means in which we're doing that and we want to get into as many people as possible is through the channel and what the channel does. And there's certain scenarios that help to grow that audience, and that's when you're watching the videos, hitting the like button. Obviously, a lot of you guys comments as well, but also subscribing to our channel. You know, from all of our viewers, we've currently actually only got 25% of our regular monthly viewers who are actually subscribed to the channel. So I'd really like to make that a bigger number. So again, if you are watching this and you're not subscribed, please hit that button and help us to grow and help as many people as possible. So there we are. Yeah, I've also got, we're going to dig into it a little bit as well. This is the very nice Sakai parent catalogue. And there's a little snippet in here about the Dragon Ball lineage, which is one that I have a batch of Tosai from this year. Really curious one. And yeah, I think it'd be good to have a look at that, because it's a crossbreeding that would certainly throw a few questions up, I think. And yeah, other than that, not too much more to report, really. You've probably seen a few of the videos from this week. Been getting some selections done. The Sakai fish really exciting me. They seem to be really popular in the auction last night. And thank you to everyone for your support with that again. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting them growing now. So the Dainichi, Kohaku and Yellow Monkeys are really well underway. The Sakai fish will now be settling in, and we're just waiting for the Momater stuff coming in. Can't wait for it. And yeah, don't forget tomorrow evening, folks, as well, 7 p.m. over on the Koi Talk channel, Koi Talk Live episode 2. I think it's myself, Alan, Crafty, and Joe tomorrow, because yeah, we've had a few deserters, folks. Absolutely shocking. No, Yivo, I believe, is enjoying himself over in Dubai. Mr. Hadfield is watching, has got a run to the airport to get the missus, I believe. So, yeah, that's it. It's pretty hard to keep up with life at times. But there we go. Right, I'm going to start having a look at a few of the questions. And like I say, feel free to keep firing them in. I'll do my best to rip through them as much as possible. And yeah, we'll have a look at that Sakai one in a little moment. So that's a good one. Grey Fox. Eric, you got a question. Have you ever heard or seen someone fall into a breeder's tank in Japan? If so, what happens? The first thing that happens, Grey, is they get very wet. That's the first bit for you there. Other than that, they get fished out and everybody generally absolutely pisses the pants at the whole scenario. I remember the first time I actually witnessed it was, I think I was 13 at the time. We was at Miyatora. We'd been handpicking some tosai, and his old man just took the plunge straight in. And I remember at the time he had like a black bomber jacket on, and the whole thing just inflated and kept him kind of bobbing around, which was pretty funny. And yeah, I've had I think a couple of customers take the plunge as well. I've avoided it out in Japan. I've been in a couple of my own, and Joe was obviously in one of the filters the other day. Yeah, them filter lids are an absolute killer when they go. I know the last time one went on me, did some serious damage. So, yeah, nothing really happens, mate. Obviously, the fish get a bit of a spook, but it's not really any different to the sort of net going in for them. And yeah, on we go. But certainly is a good laugh all round when it does happen, mate, and happens more often than you'd think, especially in Japan. A lot of the fish houses are like complete and utter death traps. So very common, and such small walls, sometimes dripping in algae. Yeah, it's crazy. There's some places you could fall down which would wipe you out. You know, the pits, the sort of like whole chambers where they keep all the standpipes are as deep as the ponds. So often like 2.5 meters, and they're just a drop completely uncovered. So yeah, interesting place, breeders' fish houses. But like I say, it does happen, and pretty funny when it does. Richard, how you doing, Richard? When will your new ponds you're building be ready? Yeah, no idea with that one at the moment. We just constantly we're discussing it. We're sort of making the plans on it. If I'm being honest, I can't fully decide on the filtration setup because as I'm looking at it, obviously I'm trying to maximize water volume for the ponds, also then maximize efficiency. Although they're not going to be big ponds, they're going to be about 1,000 gallon each, 8 in each fish houses, so 16 altogether. I need to get the right filtration on them. Obviously, I'm completely planning on having a shower, and I know the kind of line that I've got in mind is running more than likely to a sieve, is what I'm thinking, possibly with 150 micron screen in it as opposed to the 300, running that bottom drain to the sieve and then directly over the shower. So what I'll be able to do that way is really pull that bottom drain line hard as much as I can pull through the 4-inch pipe, through the sieve and up over the shower. And that's not going to affect any retention time, biological performance as a result of that. And then actually taking the main biological line through a side drain. So possibly thinking into a nexus, although at the minute, the kind of space that's potentially taking up is not suiting me for the amount of media I can get in. So possibly a custom built chamber and just actually feed that directly from a side drain. So that's the idea I'm toying with. Got to get that planned first, but it's just unfortunate we're in that time of year now where we needed one of the fish houses as it stood for keeping the sold fishing as it's been stood. You know, we've got one quarantine house. I think 5 of the ponds have all got sold fishing that have been overwintering at the minute. So yeah, as soon as we find a moment, we'll crack on with it. But it's going to be a kind of bit by bit job, I think, over the summer, and hopefully towards the back end of the summer, really hit it hard with everything in place and just go for it and put it together. But huge heating system installation again, because it'll be one similar to the other fish house with all 18 ponds running off the one boiler. But the level of work that went into installing that was phenomenal. And of course, the cost, when you think about it, it's 18 individual systems being put in, you know, you do the maths on it. 18. Well, it's going to be actually more if I run it through the system I'm talking. There's going to be 2 water pumps per system, and probably the 1 air pump. So 36 water pumps be pretty crazy. So, but yeah, the idea is I want them to be really, really efficient. You know, we achieve some really super things with the 1,500 gallon ponds I've got at the minute, or 12 to 1,500. So having them at that size, but with even better, higher spec filtration, will make them absolutely lethal, I think, and be very diverse in what I can do with them. And having the quantity of them as well will allow me even more diversity, rather than building a few big ponds like I initially planned. This way I'll be able to get more separation, split more fish up, and just generally get more use out of the tanks. So yeah, there we go. That's a bit of background on that one for you, and we'll just see how it goes. But as soon as it started, I certainly will be documenting it, so don't worry about that. Carp Leicester, Parasites seem to be making an appearance at this time always. What's your opinion on how this happens, given no fish going in and no wildlife can get in? Are they always there, or just not numbers? Yeah, so I mean, parasites are always present. It's something fish are completely fighting off, but you've got to remember they're stress-based, a lot of them. So as soon as you induce stress, which springtime does, it's game on. That's exactly what's happening, and it's constantly happening all this time with fluctuating temperatures, bad temperature ranges that the fish are sat in as well. So a lot to consider there. But yeah, stress factors are the biggest cause. You don't need stuff going in and out there. You know, poor water can cause parasitic problems. But yeah, really worth, to be honest, Lester, I don't know if you're a Koi Talk magazine subscriber, but well worth getting subscribed. The last issue, 21, I think, has got a full piece in about sort of tackling spring and dealing with spring. So you'll be able to get the lowdown on it there, because it was a really in-depth piece. And anybody watching who is a subscriber, please let me know in the comments what you think to that article if you've read it, because I was hoping it would provide a lot of value to everybody who got to read it. Let's have a look. What's the difference between balance and balance R? I'm going to be honest, I don't fully know at the moment. I know the balance R, I'm led to believe, is a recovery food. So it's a real strong immune booster. Because even the balance is not one I use. I use so much growth and colour and the balance as well. I'm not going to lie, I've not got dug into the balance. All I see is the price difference, and I'm struggling to see where it would fit in. It's possibly one of them products a little bit like Deep Red somewhere. I know a lot of people have been using it, and yeah, it's something I will play around with at some point, but I've not got any more information to give you on that one at the minute. Other than what I am doing is a full-blown video and documentation of Saki Ikari Pure White. So the food arrived today, and my Dainichi collection, which have been on colour now for a solid couple of months, are going to be flipped onto that in the final kind of preparation, ready for the next growing season. So yeah, it's I can't wait to see that. So we're going to get the video done of them now as they are. Hopefully get some real in-depth looks so we can really show the true difference after a month to possibly 6 weeks they're going to be on it, and get a gauge for the true performance of it and see how that's going to be for koi keepers, which I'm pretty excited to do, to be honest. I do like playing around and experimenting and seeing how good these products actually are with that stuff. Obviously, it's got a lot to live up to given the price tag of it, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, as for Balance Arm, I'll get some more info, and certainly one I need to be trying. I think the basis of it is a recovery food, and the thing being you can use it at periods of high stress. So maybe if your fish come back after a koi show, in a breeder's scenario, it would be after harvesting or them kind of scenarios, or us recovering fish after a shipment as well. So yeah, I'll get a bit more info on that, and that's something we can come back to and discuss at a later time for sure. Just bear with me. Martin, I know you like books because I've given you one. What is the best book you have read? That's a good question. I say that I'm looking over at my bookshelf now, but to be honest with you, I liked the Koi 1 and Koi 2 books by Harold Bachman. I just found them a really interesting read. There was a lot of good information sat in them that wasn't readily available anywhere else other than getting it firsthand. So I liked what they offered people for sure. And other than that, I've got a Japanese Nishikigoi manual, which is a really, really good one for the koi health side, especially got some really interesting stuff in there. And then from years back, I can't remember what it was. I think it was called the Koi Doc or something like that. It was Dr. Johnson from the United States. If you look him up, that was a fantastic, absolute Bible for koi health, that one. I think it's still available to buy online as well. So well worth looking up. Say Dr. Johnson. I can't remember the exact name of it. I'm not going to lie, but that was superb. There was a lot of stuff I picked up from that, and it was all from first-hand practical experience and research from the guy. So well worth a look. Is that one? Let's have a look. Steve Lane, how you doing, buddy? I want a bit of bling to my pond. Can you tell me what to look out for in a good ginrin? Thanks. Coverage more than anything. Certainly when they're tosai, you want it to be really packing because ginrin will naturally fade as the fish gets bigger. So you want a serious concentration of it when the fish is young. In the case of like a ginrin kohaku, yeah, you want that full coverage everywhere, you know, as far down the lateral across the whole body as you can. And like I say, as strong as you can because it will fade off. In the case of ginrin showa, that can be a bit different because there's two different takes on this. The ultimate Japanese style with ginrin showa, what they find super desirable is where the sumi actually sits on top of the ginrin. That was something Kansuke first introduced me to, and then Shigeyoshi at Mariju. So, yeah, in that case, we want to see sumi sitting on top of the ginrin. So it will go flat in that area. It's an interesting dynamic, but that in Japan is deemed as the ultimate quality in the likes of ginrin showa. So, yeah, bear that in mind, but ultimately focus on that quality of ginrin when it's younger. You've probably seen a couple of the yellow monkeys come up. The first little tosai one we auctioned was so intense as a tosai, and you know that's just going to maintain a really good level of ginrin as the fish gets older and more mature. So I hope you find that useful. Rory O'Donnell, how do you rate Otsuka for Benigoi, or does nothing come close to the Dainichi? What would be your top breeders to the variety? Yeah, so Benigoi, what you want to look for, ideally you want to know they're coming from Kohaku lineage is one of the best. Try and avoid Showa-based Benigoi, which you will get from them spawnings. But yeah, I don't think there's any beating these guys, to be honest with you. If you look in Dainichi, Sakai, Momater, because ultimately what these Benigoi are, they're carrying them same genetics from them Kohaku lines. And them Kohaku lines, especially in the case of Sakai and Dainichi, and certainly the Dainichi Red Tiger ones, it's not getting any better because we know it's some of the very best Benny in the world. And what you've got it there is absolutely unhinged on that one fish. So, yeah, they're the best for me. And then what you also know they've got underpinning it is the genetics as well, because a single coloured fish without the kind of size potential is not an interesting prospect. Yeah, the size is everything with them eventually. So, yeah, for me, I'd still put Dainichi and Sakai as your number one options for a Benigoi at the minute. They'd certainly be where I'd be flying for one, that's for sure. Mr. Hadfield, when would you use red and white sake before a show? Yeah, so I think I've touched on this before, and it's not a case of how I see show conditioning really is 12 months in the planning. You know, you've really got to get everything in order first. So you can't just think you can push the fish all summer, chuck them on some deep reds, and that's going to make all the difference. It will have some impact, but this really needs to be a case of you've got a full schedule planning of what you're going to do with the fish, how much size you want to gain, how much bulk you need to gain. Do you need to grow it for a period and then start conditioning, or do you just need to keep it kind of simmering before you go on. Because this is a case here, you got to remember in Japan, they're competitively trying to keep fish in the smaller size classes. So like a 25 cm fish, keeping it teetering around the right size level. Doing that is almost as difficult as pushing the fish in size and getting them bigger. So yeah, a period. I mean, with the deep red, I would say from what I've seen of it and used, a month will have a profound impact. But you're probably then going to need a month to 6 weeks on the white to get that flushed out as well. But I think with the colour, the best thing is to have the slow build up beforehand as well. So it's really tactical. There's really a load of different directions you can go with that one. It really needs to be based on the program of knowing what you need out of the fish. And the challenge a lot of you guys are going to have against people commercially is a lack of different ponds. Because it might be that, some fish, if you've got you conditioning some sheer up sorry, piling deep red into a pond is not going to help that fish in the slightest. And it might be that, some fish don't need Shiroji conditioning all that much. They just naturally hold it really, really well. And it might be, like I say, some need to get body, some don't. So in some that need to get body, they're going to need a different program to the ones that don't, and where you might be looking to maintain size rather than add it so that you hit the right size in the size class. Just so multi-layered. But I think as a finishing, you're going to need at least a month to 6 weeks on both of those diets to truly get the impact of them. And on the pure white, you will see from this trial that I'm going to do and document exactly the impact it has and the time scale it is, because that's going to be the plan, to see what it kind of does maybe after a couple of weeks, or probably after a month, to be honest with you. I think it's a fair amount to expect. A couple of weeks. It's going to take a couple of weeks for a diet to really start to get into it. So yeah, good question. I think the show conditioning thing is a curious one, and everyone kind of finds their own way with it. But for me, it's just learning about conditioning that's the right thing. But yeah, I don't think you can get away from the fact of what makes it harder is when it's all just in the one pond together. There's so many variables to all that. But that's why, you see how Narita is doing it. There's so many different ponds there, so many different programs for different fish being set out. It's phenomenal. So I mean, in that case, there might be some fish, i.e. Goshki, that needs a period of really intense colour food, whereas others don't. So yeah, really a lot to that one. Probably one you can eke more out. And for you, mate, to be honest, as we're talking, if it's something you want to do, then we can probably look at getting a program put together. But yeah, interesting topic. Right, let me see what else we've got. Adam, how you doing, buddy? Pond video's gone down well, mate. Been really popular. I've noticed a couple of fish in the evening will rest near the bottom of the pond with their pec fins actually pushed forwards a bit. Just wondered if there was any meaning to this. Yeah, I mean, it literally might just be them resting, mate. Obviously, they need to do this from time to time. When things are still and you've walked up on them, that might be their natural state. Obviously, if it's gone darker and everything's quiet, you can often, if you interrupt fish like that, you'll see them in that state and they very quickly come back to life. So providing they're not doing it consistently, which could, if it's doing it all throughout the day and struggling to get up in the pond or up in the water, or its swimming seems quite laboured, it could indicate, and that pec fin is sitting weird, it could indicate a swim bladder issue. But with you saying it's a couple, it's not normal to get, more than one fish go down with a swim bladder problem at one time. So I'd say possibly is just resting. Obviously, it's a good thing to eliminate any parasites. I know you're heated, so hopefully you've not got the spring issues coming into it. But it literally could just be that it's chilling, mate. That's a legitimate thing that Koi will do. So possibly not worry into it too much. Right. Another Ikari question. Tony Barker, good evening, buddy. We know your thoughts on Saki Ikari, but what are your thoughts on other Ikari foods such as staple wheat, German gold? Yeah, I'll be. This will pretty much show you where I'm at. As being an Ikari fan, I think they're pretty average, to be honest. I used them last year when I was playing around because I was like, I didn't sorry, not last year, the year before that. So when I started back with sake, I was still undecided about what I wanted to use as kind of like the staple food, because even at that point, I wasn't sure I wanted to fully commit to the cost of just using sake exclusively across the whole site. So gold for me, the price difference, performance-wise to the price difference when we look at it per kilo, there's not enough of a difference. It seems massively inferior, given the price difference is actually so small. Wheat germ foods I've never been a fan of, full stop. And then staple, yeah, I just don't think it cuts the mustard for me. So yeah, I can't really sing the praises of all that range, to be honest with you. Sake is the one that they created. It's absolutely, honestly out there on its own, full stop. So you'll see there. For some of the skeptics that think I'm on the Ikari payroll, yeah, I'd be getting shot right now if I was for saying that. But yeah, that was the reason. I started using that. I've already used so many of the other foods on the market. I was sort of like so unexcited about going to them. And then it was just like I was looking at all the costs, breaking it all down. Thought it just makes sense for me to use Balance as our kind of staple food, and that's what we've done ever since. So yeah, that's my very honest take on that one, buddy. Right, Les Bean, good evening. Thoughts on the usefulness of a home quarantine system where no naive fish are available present, in particular for those of us that do not add new koi to the pond very often, will not have any naive koi on hand as such. Quarantining a new koi on its own would appear to serve little or no purpose, especially when viral infections are concerned. Yeah, well put, Les. Thoughts on that one? I mean, if in your case, and obviously I know a bit of your background, I know you'll be vetting the dealers very, very well that you're dealing with, so, and have experience with them enough to know that quarantine has been done effectively and efficiently. I think that's an important part in all this, because you're very right. Having an additional quarantine system set up, all you can basically do is keep it there for a period of time. In most instances, you can have naive fish. I mean, naive fish is as simple as having a few English bred koi or just some cheap Japanese fish in there from another breeder, something like that. Really, really easy to do. But like you say, then it's the expense of having another system running it when you might not actually be introducing fish all that often. So yeah, I think this is where it comes down to knowing your dealer, knowing their standards and practices in stuff like this, and trusting it, to be honest with you. There's always the risk of parasites being introduced. Virally, again, with your good dealers, I don't think you've got too much to be concerned about. And the likelihood of you catching it, like you say, it can be very hit and miss anyway. With introducing a fish into your pond, we've got then the other potential risks, like you say, being viral illness, which could still catch you anyway. You could quarantine the fish, introduce it into your pond again, and then hit something in there which could trigger something virally. I'm not just talking about KHV, I'm talking about the whole host of all the viral illnesses that you might meet. Parasitically, again, you can move that into your pond, into a quarantine system, sort it out, then move it into your pond. The stress event from that can be enough to trigger parasites. And that's why, to be honest, we've been talking about this. Me and Joe's done another podcast today that's out on Monday, talking about the process where I think responsibility of learning how to use microscopes and deal with it for hobbyists on all levels is an absolute essential, given the low costs involved with getting such a setup these days versus the cost of a koi collection or even a single koi in a lot of these cases. So yeah, you got that one. I think the biggest concern for me, and again, when you've got a good dealer and you know what you're looking at, is not a worry. Is probably introducing bacterial problems. I honestly think that's the biggest risk out there to people watching this. Obviously, yes, you could introduce parasites in, and if you don't know what you're doing with it, that's going to cause you some issues. But parasites are just, like I say, stress events will cause it. So you've constantly got that threat regardless. The only way to really stop against it is to stop introducing new fish, which is going to just kill the hobby for so many. But yeah, I think bacterial is the biggest risk, and you're not just going to naturally, if you see in the environment they're coming from and you can't see any visible signs of anything like that, your risk is massively low anyway. But like I say, you can quarantine a fish, then introduce it, and something happened at that point anyway. So yeah, I think the reality is when you're finding the right dealers, and this is to be the sort of way we want to do it as well, is to educate you guys as much as possible to know what you're looking for, to know the risk factors, to be wise and to be switched on, because in doing that, you find the right people, you mitigate and reduce all of these risks anyway. And from there on, you know, it reduces the need for you to be having your own quarantine system and doing all them types of things, because you're rightly so, that's going to be a massive expense and thing for you there if you're just you know, not bringing fish in very often. So yeah, good question, Les. Like that one. So right, I can see things firing in, guys. Thank you very much for that, as always. Let me see what else we've got. Rob, noticed some gravity showers coming out. One pump less could be interesting. Curious if it actually works decently. Yeah, time will tell with that one, mate. I think you probably know what I'm going to say if you've watched for a while. See all these new things coming to market. And to be honest, most of the time, I'm so uninterested. When I see it, I kind of glance at it and think, if I'm going to lie, what a load of shit. If I'm going to be honest, yeah, what a load of shit. And kind of just move on from it as well, because yeah, each their own. I can see it sometimes, but let's see. I think time it'll be the tell with a lot of these new products. I certainly take some convincing. For me, it's more about, and this is something we are going to steer towards, you know, re-educating and teaching about the principles of filtration, what to do and how you can do all this yourself. Yes, one less pump, but why not just have a submerged system anyway? Because I can't see how, if you're going for a submerged shower, it's probably going to have a smaller footprint. Again, I've not seen all the tech specs to it, but a smaller footprint, you're more likely going to be using ceramic media, where in that space you'd be far more efficient having the likes of K1 in fluid bed format anyway. So for me, it becomes, and I wouldn't have a system for a proper good long-term raising pond where I haven't got submerged filtration at the core of it. That for me is an absolute must. I'm a massive fluid bed advocate, and that would be the heart of any pond. The showers, when I add them, are for additional benefit. And for me, that's what I'd be looking at, you know. So it's a case of, you've got your core system, whether that's drum combi, whatever it is, but there's a fluid bed there at the heart of it. Then if you want something extra, you do that by adding a shower, and do the shower in the way it was originally designed to be done to get all the benefits from it. You know, got to look at all the things. Airflow alone, you know, showers do oxygenate. I know this is a thing that's been getting banded around a bit. They do oxygenate water massively, but not if they're closed vessels. This is the chat I had with Jasper at EA some years back, when he was looking at our trickle towers that we use outside, and they are completely closed vessels. There's a lid on the top. There's just two pipes as the exit. So there's no airflow through that filter. Therefore, it cannot oxygenate. All that is doing is consuming oxygen through the biological action, nothing more. The return pipes might give a bit of contact with the air, but that is it. So in a proper decent shower, you need airflow, and that's as simple as an in and an out. It's not complicated to do, but to get the oxygenation effect, you need to have the airflow. And so then all of a sudden, if that, again, I've not fully seen the system, but if you've got a gravity shower that's sat and all closed up, I question what's the point, because like I say, you'll be far more efficient having a fluid bed driven by an air pump, which then actually does become a very, very efficient aeration mechanism, as well as a biological filter. So there we go, mate. Time will tell, Rob. We'll wait and see. Perrin Williams, good evening. Evening, Ricky. Choosing food on a budget, what would you do? Currently buy dealer branded, possibly Coppens, 15 kg for around £100 and use 6 bags a year. Would you switch to sake if it means you compromise on giving less food due to cost? Yeah, so, you know, I said it'd be great to get some data on this one. I'm not going to commit to doing it because I just can't see where we can fit it in time-wise. But I did talk about this in a video I did, and basically the false economy around it, because what we should be looking for if we were monitoring it is weight gained to food fed. and getting a conversion ratio there, because it's only at that point can we really truly understand value for money. Because what you might find is that you feed 50% less food and still get the same growth and weight gain. I mean, I've seen it. I've seen the results. Ikari has got data on it. I've got a paper. I don't actually know it. In fact, here we go. It's an interesting one. I keep it in my drawer because I've not been able to find this one since. So this was from years back. And if I actually just try and find the piece now, I'll read it to you. But yeah, that conversion ratio is absolutely everything that you need to be looking for. So, right, here we go. I'll try and read through this, but it is translated English. So let's have a look. So see the bar graph. It reads the comparison of feed efficiency of our diets. This experiment concludes that Ikari, and this is normal Ikari diets that we discussed with Tony's question earlier, has a 73% feed efficiency. So that's where they're at. And bearing in mind, although I don't rate it, this has been kind of like the world #1 fish food for decades. Saki Ikari breeding diet, 93%. And the newest Saki Ikari growth, wait for this one because this was mind-boggling, 120% efficiency. I mean, that's just mental. And that'll be from their laboratory research. So again, this is something we're actually working to get really, stuck into Ikari to start getting some technical information out of the guys in Japan to help understand all of this more. Certainly how you can get an efficiency rating like that. It's absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, so it just goes to show that can be it. Visually, I can say I've seen it. And because you've got so much more, you could be putting a kilo of food in and it's just not converting into weight. They're shitting it all out. So a lot to it, I would say. And my background is coming from the brand you mentioned there. It was the diet I previously switched from. And yeah, the difference was just night and day. I can't stress it enough. And like I say, if you want any kind of proof to it, the reason being, I spend tens of thousands of pounds a year on this stuff. Alistair from Ikari came to see me today, and that's exactly, what I was discussing. It was a massive cost saving to my business right there. I could get rid of, but it just wouldn't make sense, because what you've also got to bear in mind, it's all the other, I say non-tangible stuff, but you can see it. So it's the quality, it's the health of the fish, the resilience of the fish, the quality of the mucus that it's going to produce, the sort of, efficiency and quality of the water and improvement you're going to get from it. So much more. So all I say, Perrin, is I would absolutely vouch for you to sort of take the plunge, try it. And I can very confidently say, as so many others on here have, you'll see a huge difference coming from the diet that you're using already. And again, I will say, I stand by this. I believe it's the best specialist koi product made to date. I think it's truly remarkable. So there we go. Martin Stammers, good evening, buddy. Hi, Rick. How you doing? I'm good. Bit tired today, mate, actually. The wife has been really quite ill in the night. She was actually in A&E, so kind of tipped everything on its head. So I can see my eyes look a bit strained. But yeah, we're still here, and I'll hopefully get a decent night's kip tonight. But anyway, with people being able to make custom-built K1 aerated chambers, do you use approximate flow through them, retention time? Yeah, so again, this is coming, the retention time, I don't particularly look at retention times. I look at the setup for the turnover rate of the pond based on that being the only system. So, and just let it go from there. So forget having a shower. You've just got one biological chamber. The turnover I want through that core system. So this is why I talk about the system design I'm looking at for my new ponds. So what I'm looking for there is to be able to take the shower out of the equation. Imagine I've got one bottom drain feeding through my main system, being the fluid bed system. I want on that line a turnover once every 2 hours. And then I could calculate the retention times and whatnot, but I'm not. I know if I've got that running at the core system, passing through the moving beds, the UVs and everything else on that line, everything's going to work very, very well and very nicely. And I'm going to get the good retention time and everything else from it. So happy days there. And then from that, if I want to increase turnover, I'm not going to do that by increasing the flow through that filtration line because I want that working at that speed. I'm going to do that by adding additional filtration. So whether that be shower or something else on a separate line altogether, where you can use whatever flow rate and it's not going to matter. You're basically going to increase pond turnover, but keep that main line ticking over at the rate we want it to. So I hope that makes sense, Martin. Yeah, I can't really go into it much more tonight, buddy. And to be honest with you, it's another one we are going to dig into retention time in the magazine, where I've actually got a bit of time and a fresh brain to sit and do all the calculations to give people some examples. So, but I hope you get the gist of where I'm coming from there. For me, it's important to have that functioning main system where it's creating a turnover once every couple of hours. And then if you want to increase that turnover, go for, let's say, additional lines and systems to get that, so you keep that main performance in your fluid bed. Koi vlogs, Momater, Kohaku or Sakai Kohaku for the moment. Your choice. Ooh, that's a tough one. Because Momater, I mean, it's so strong with Kohaku at the minute from what I've seen this year and what I've got coming as well. So I'm going to have to, God, you've got me there. I am going to go with Sakai. I just think too much, too strong, too powerful. Yeah, let's go with that. But ask me that question again at the end of the year and see what I think when I've actually got some recent first-hand results, to be honest with you. Abby Bain, evening, buddy. What's the best way to remove the dreaded string algae? To be honest with you, mate, just treatments. I'm not for, this has actually come up a bit recently. I don't like these real intense treatments that go in. There's still a few of them on the market that have been around for a long time now that go in and really hit it hard and seem to completely destroy the pond walls. Really against that, because I've seen what it can do to the algae cycle as well and the whole pole. The whole thing, that coating on the wall is completely essential. All you want to do is reduce it. For a long time now, I've used Colombo Algacin. That's what I tend to stick with. Does the job for me, not too invasive. I'm not seeing any negative side effects from it. And it's the one I stick with for that reason. I know there's others out there in the market that are popular, but the ones that tend to go in like an SAS soldier and bang, get in there and absolutely destroy everything and get out, I think they leave too much damage behind that then your system's got to recuperate from. So yeah, but treatments are the best way for sure, but get the right one. Absolutely. Right. Suzanne, another food question. If you have an unheated pond, which is the best sake to feed, which won't turn white shiro pink, please? Yeah, I don't think you'll have that from any of the sake range, to be honest with you, but unheated, you're going to be between multi-season and balance, to be honest. Not a huge fan of the multi-season, but it is your best option in the really cooler ponds. If I'm at 12 or above with how I feed, I'm going to choose balance, to be honest, because, again, it's not being too heavy with it at that parameters. But, yeah, either or, and probably the safest bet if you're unsure is to go with the multi-season. Tom Nugent, good evening. On your main ponds, how often are you feeding in the height of the season, and do you ramp it up over time? What sort of time period? Thanks. Yeah, so generally at sort of 24, 25 on the toe side ponds especially, I'm feeding every 2 hours from 6 in the morning till 10 in the evening. And I do it on a time-based system, which does allow me to have incremental gains. So I've discussed this before, I kind of set based on what I know the pond can handle, either like a 5, 10, or even 20-minute feeding window. When it's coming 2 hours, I often tend to keep it to like 10 minutes because obviously it's not long from eating it. Then they've got to process it before the next feed's coming around. So yeah, and what I do is, when I've eventually got them so they're consistently eating for 5 minutes till they've cleared it up, At that point, I'll be monitoring feeds, and when I see that drop off to say 4 minutes, I give some incremental gains to the feeding to bring it back to 5 minutes, which is compensating for that bit of growth and more food that's needed. It's a really, really simple system that you can deploy, and it's very, very successful, as you've probably seen with the results that I've got. So all it's a case of doing then is really monitoring the system and making sure the pond is performing as well. So there we go. Crafty, this is going to be a good one. I've recently seen the entry fees for Japanese shows that are paid by the koi owners. Is this something that should be considered for koi shows in the UK? Crafty, I'm going to bounce that question right back to all of the viewers, everybody watching this video. Please let me know in the comments, if it meant having bigger and more successful shows, would you as koi keepers be prepared to enter, pay higher costs and entry fees? I've actually got one right here, so you guys will love this. Right, so here is an idea for you. I'm not actually sure what it costs. I think we just pay for the VAT in the UK things. At the koi shows there, obviously most of the handling is done by breeders and dealers. So a dealer or a breeder will have a VAT and then break it down. But there's several different things that can be charged. We've got a pool charge, there's handling charge. Yeah, so basically, let me show you. Let me give you an example of where this is at, 'cause I think it'll be a good shock. So we've got 25 boo at Kohaku that I entered at 25 boo, and the total entry charge for that one fish was £137.50 for the one fish. So there is a real dose of reality there with the Japanese shows. But this is what actually gives the Japanese shows the flexibility to run the shows when suits the koi calendar, because the shows are not dictated by commercialism. You know, in the UK ones, it's very, very important that a lot of the stand fees paid by the retailers is what puts the biggest donation into the pot for the show, the biggest contribution. So it really needs to make sure it's successful for them guys, even though the times when they're held is not necessarily the best time for the fish. And what this does is obviously it allows, you know, a real great level of investment back in. But this creeps right up. So here we're going to get a bit more interesting. Let me go to one. I think this will absolutely shock you. So this is one entry into 75 boo at the All Japan. So the total entry fee for that fish is £1,125. So there's a number for you. And this is what, you know, finances these shows and allows to give them the freedom, the flexibility to do it when it's best. But they're serious competitions, they're serious for the industry on a global scale, but that's how it works out there. The All Japan has trade stands, but they are not the people financing the show. The show is being financed by the hobbyists entering the fish. So really, really interesting one. And I would love to know your guys' thoughts on it, because the future of koi shows is a really interesting one. And like I say, it's all right us having, or me, you know, coming out and saying it's ideally it's not the best time of years, blah, blah, blah. But we know it has to be, because we need that support from the dealers to make the finances all add up for the shows. So, yeah, would you guys be willing to stump up the bill to have bigger, better shows at times of year when it's necessarily better for the fish and it's more about the competition than it is the actual event itself? So, yeah, interesting one. But yeah, good question, Crafty. Right, let me just catch back up to where I was. I can't believe we've done 50 minutes already. Terry O'Connell, to maximise growth other than heat and quality food, what would you recommend to help this goal, given that water filters are all up to spec? You've pretty much nailed the secrets there, Terry. Not just quality food. I think, and I've said this before, getting the right feeding levels. And this is something I've touched upon so much. The art to really raising koi and raising them properly is food, nutrition. I believe a lot of people out there probably do actually underfeed which also has its own set of problems that come with it. Or they're not, even if they're feeding enough, it's not the right food and they're not getting the correct nutrition. So the quality of the nutrition, but getting the right feeding amounts, and then learning to deal with your pond and process what comes as a result of those high feeding levels. It's really the secret. The breeders know it. A lot of the feeding is constantly done on the edge where, you know, you've got to be able to fluctuate. And this is actually something, this has blown my mind this week. So my new recruit out in Japan, Rie, has done an interview with Nogami this week. And I've got the script back from it. And my God, it was amazing. And this is actually one question I asked about indoor raising. And that was exactly what came back, is that, and this is exactly as I've been saying it, the concrete pond raising for breeders allows them to get better results because they can see what's happening and adapt to the changes a lot more. And what it is, you know, we're building feeding levels up to such a height, you can very quickly overdo it. And very quickly, you've got to rectify that, or you're going to cause some serious damage and mortality from it possibly as well. So in a mud pond, they've basically got to be more cautious because, you know, when something goes wrong in a mud pond, you either don't see it or don't see it till it's too late, and it's a lot harder to rectify. But look out for that coming in a future issue of Koi Talk magazine, because it is going to be an epic. Oh, there we go. Look, Steve's got the picture. It's an absolutely epic read. I obviously, with the time even I've spent to it, I designed the questions in a very particular way of stuff I was itching to know, and I got 5 questions into it, and I had goosebumps. It was, I think that it's that good. It's that good of information, and getting into the mindset and the knowledge that these guys have in such a way is fascinating. So look out for that. If you're not subscribed, get it done today, please, folks. Support the mag, and I'll keep the content like that coming because it's going to be fascinating. Adam Weber, if a koi has a slightly weak peduncle at this site, is there any possibility of it thickening up as it grows, swims, and exercises more, or not much of a chance? Right, the picture I'm painting there is that possibly you're thinking you've got a fish, tell me if I'm wrong, where you might have the sort of a bit of a nip coming. So the actual body line of the fish is sort of coming into a small peduncle, possibly female, and it's creating a little bit of a pinchy look. If that's the scenario we're talking about, peduncle will thicken up with age always, because, you know, you're getting more flesh, you're building up the muscle, you're building up the fat and everything. So that's what gives it more thickness. However, if the line of the fish is not correct, the body line's not correct, and structurally it's not correct, what won't happen is, because it's all going to grow proportionately. So if you've got strong shoulders and a thin peduncle, you're going to grow with bigger shoulders and still a small peduncle. Although both will get thicker, they'll get thicker proportionately. That's why looking at them lines is absolutely so important. Yeah, there we go. So looking at them lines is so important, and that will never change because it's set in the structure of the fish. That's why I harp on about the importance of it. And more than anything, that kind of triangular, that taper that I'm on about, where you got the body's basically 2 triangles, that nice triangular head, and then, you know, a longer triangle on the back of the body. Again, you don't want peduncle too thick when they're young, because that can often actually be a deformity that will lead to growth and body issues later on as well. So, yeah, good question, mate. And I think I've hit the nail on the head for that one for you. And sorry to tell you, whatever fish it's looking at, yeah, it's probably not going to change. So there we go. Thomas Murray, Ricky, I'm deliberating building a roof structure over my pond, pergola type thing. Will the lack of direct sunlight negatively affect benny development? Can you just pros cons of a roof covering? Yeah, absolutely. So I get this. It's a trade-off. When I'm talking about koi, I'm everything. It's completely fish first, and that comes at whatever cost. I don't care. It's fish first. Now, I get that with you guys, I'm not saying you don't put your fish first, but for you, you've got a pond in your garden. It's a feature. You want it to look as nice as you can. And I get that, you know, the roofing, pergolas, all the rest of it is really good. If you're talking about a completely dark roof, then yeah, the minute you start putting UV, it's going to have an impact on colour. Obviously, if it's high enough, you can still get, you know, sun cutting in at certain parts of the day, but ultimately it will have an effect. For me, I would prefer a scenario where I've got full UV, and then I've got the option to change it. Like, again, I've mentioned the breeders' shading systems they introduce in the greenhouses. So they've got the option. They're either absolutely full on, where the material they're using does not cut any UV whatsoever. Because even, let's not forget, I've mentioned it before, polycarbonate, although it lets light through, kills UV transmission, and it's the UV that we want. So it's a scenario where you can find a balance, but if you cut too much, yes, you're going to impact it. But likewise, too much full-on UV is also going to negatively impact from time to time as well, especially if you've got crystal clear water. So I get it. It's a tough one to find a balance, and I get it's a feature in your pond, in your garden, sorry, that you want to make look as nice as possible. So I'll have to leave you to deliberate that one, unfortunately. Right, let me just have another look through. I see there's a few more food questions coming up, guys. I'm going to leave them for now because I feel like we've spoken enough about the food tonight. Terry, redoing my pond and adding a moving bed as part of the filter system. What would you recommend for the mechanical side in gravity fed? Yeah, Terry, I mean, to be honest with you, it depends where you're at budget-wise and what you want from it all. I mean, if we're talking mechanical filters, for me, I'm considering sieves as it stands because two reasons. I've spoken about my experience with drums so far, and I'm on the fence with it. The biggest thing steering me, in all honesty, is I've got 18 ponds to set up, and you do the maths, even with the trade discounts that I'll get, 18 of them is just a huge, colossal job, and I don't know if I've got the confidence in them enough. All I basically want is the concept. You know, it's the concept of a drum of taking the waste out of the water body. That for me is the bit that sells it. There's no other thing to it that sells it other than that. I'm not bothered about the level of micron it strips or anything like that. It's just how it takes that waste out of the water body. That's the essential bit. And I believe we're going to get that from a sieve, especially if adapting the microns so we get even more trapped out. Ultimately, it's holding that waste on the screen out the water body, and all it needs is to go around once and again and just wash it off. I'm not against some manual intervention there. So yeah, for me, I think you want to be looking along them lines. The issues with a sieve, unless you go for the sort of dual gravity setup, which I'm not completely convinced by, you've got to gravity feed to your sieve and then pump feed out of it, which is going to be a nightmare with your bio chamber, which then kind of brings drum back into it a little bit more. There's nothing wrong with the older forms of filtration either. You know, I've got brush chambers running and things like that. But again, I understand from your guys' perspective, you know, that maintenance and intervention with them is required is not an appealing job. And we want to make the hobby as enjoyable as we can for everyone. So you're possibly steering along the lines of, if I look at the concept that I like of keeping the waste out of the water, you're looking at around a sieve or a drum, to be honest with you. I do like an easy. I think the issue with the easy is it's its own worst enemy at times, because a mature easy filter with K1 in is so efficient at its own job, it's actually too small, and it needs a lot of intervention and a lot more maintenance to keep the mechanical cleaning capacity there, which I think is its problem. If that was scaled up, I think you'd be onto a massive winner there with that one. But again, it would need more intervention to keep purging the waste out of the water body, which is that important factor that I'm looking for. So with that in mind, it'll leave you to decide the best option for you, buddy, to be honest with you. Right, I'm just going to hit a couple more, and then yeah, I'll just dig into this Dragon Ball one a little bit more. But thank you to everyone for all the questions. I have got a decent way down that list, taking out the new sort of Saki questions on it. Akasla, have you ever experimented using K1 media enclosed inside a mesh bag in a shower? Looking to replace my pumice rock. Is BHM the only way to go? So I'm interested in knowing, one, Michael, why you want to replace your pumice, what reason you think it is. Is BHM the only way to go? Absolutely not. It's going to be a long time before you catch me spending the money on it, to be honest with you. My thoughts in shower, when you've got a shower working properly, a shower is all about the concept. That's what's doing a lot of the work. It's what's doing a lot of the heavy lifting. The media, bacteria and biofilm will grow on anything you put in that shower. If it's getting wet, biofilm will grow on it and it'll have biological impact. It could be a load of smashed up house bricks. You're going to get biofilm to grow on it and it do the job. The important part to remember with a shower is you want the effect. So when you're smashing water and you've got good airflow, you're getting the oxygenation, you're getting the degassing effect as well. So you're getting ammonia, nitrogen straight off. And that's where you really get the benefits. Like I say, doing a lot of the heavy lifting and then eventually coming to a point where the media in there is having some effect. Obviously, you want to maximize the available space for the media and have something nice and porous. But to be honest with you, I've been very happy with the Bacteria Home, the Sugar stuff that I've had in my showers. I think it's been absolutely superb for me. Price-wise, I think it's really competitive and done a great job. But likewise, I've got pumice in what, over 20 odd ponds running outside. It's also done a phenomenally good job for me. So again, curious to know why you want to replace it. If it's just a case of that usual tinkering that you guys like to do, I don't know. But yeah, I probably won't waste your time. I don't think you're going to see too much difference. And again, I'm yet to be convinced it's worth paying the difference for BHM, to be honest with you. Right, last question. Let me see what we've got. Well, there we go. That's a good one. We've sort of spoke about this today. The koi out there, Ricky. Being relatively new to koi keeping, I recently saw the use of anesthetic when bowling fish. Is this normal practice? If so, what are the quantities involved? Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big advocate for this because, as I keep saying, it reduces the stress for you and the stress for the fish. What we don't want, koi is so unpredictable when they're in a bowl. Japanese breeders do this all the time. The minute there's a fish of value, or even not when there's a fish of value, when they've got dealers who are netting fish up, rather than having firing them out all over the floor, bit of a dose of anesthetic and we've just calmed everything down. And you're going to prevent that. When I'm doing it, to be honest with you, I just naturally gauge the amounts from experience, but you don't need to use a full dose. That's too far. I'd say follow the guides, and you need to be using somewhere like a quarter to a half dose, just enough to just take the edge off the fish, stop it jumping, because there's going to be so much damage. If that koi jumps out, ends up on the floor, going to do so much damage, potentially physically, but even if we're just talking to scales and pigmentation that can then take a long time to recover. It might just split a fin jumping upwards in the bowl and landing on it badly, but then that can be a 6 to 12 month process to get it recovered if it ever does fully recover properly. So yeah, absolutely makes sense of reducing stress all round for everyone. And like I say, just go steady with the dosing. Don't need to be anything crazy, but makes complete and utter sense to me. Right. Here we go. Just a little bit on this, folks. I know it's not really a normal koi appreciation segment. So I say following bloodlines, there's this really interesting one. So this is Sakai's parent catalogue they publish every year. Probably going to struggle to get all that, but you can see there's just some absolutely fascinating fish in there. But the one I want to focus on is, went wrong way. This one here. So this is Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is, as you can see there, an Issa Showa being crossed with the male parent fish on there, which is Sakai, offspring of Miss Tai. And this is what has produced both varieties. I think that's the most important place to start. I mean, first, just admire the qualities of them fish. I mean, straight away there, you've got with the Showa, the not having no Benny on the head. If you was talking this is a show fish, not even close, but forget about that. Just look at the qualities of it, the body setup. I can see here, you know, Benny, Sumi, Shirodi are just absolutely insane. And the same can be said for the male Sankey look there. So super quality to that. But interesting mix to cross them together. This did produce, I think it was last year or year before, the International Junior Koi Show Grand Champion came from that lineage. There will be both varieties come off the parent set. I think it's probably one of the first questions. So yeah, that will produce Sankey, it will produce Showa. But the interesting thing is what it's kind of going to do, especially in Sankey's case, with the Showa, with the Sumi and the body. So that's going to be the interesting thing. I want to see it firsthand. I've got a lot of examples in the batch I've got some offspring that are have been released out into the market already, but the majority I've kept back because I really want to study and see how these differ. And it's also nice that I've got other Sakai fish that are not from this lineage, just the normal lineages that are out there, and I'll be able to compare how that Sumi actually performs differently. So it's a really, really interesting mix, and I'm again curious to see if it completely changes. It could have potentially changed the way the Sumi is kind of rooted in the skin on the Sankey. Let's see, and like I say, see how it progresses and then compares against them. But really interesting when you see breeders doing this kind of stuff and the thought processes behind it and getting stuck into this whole bloodline stuff, because it really is a fascinating topic to get into, and one I'm never tired of learning more on. Again, coming back to it, the Nogami interview that we've done, I got him to delve into Kagura. So Kagura is a really famous Dainichi strain. There it is with the picture again. Really famous Dainichi strain. And to be honest with you, I know quite a bit about it, but not too much about the history. So to get Nogami, because it's also the foundation of Nogami's Kohaku lineage, and Maruyama as well, who were both Dainichi Obi-Kai, so trained at Dainichi. And it's the one that fascinating one. So I got some insight there that I absolutely never knew, which again got the goosebumps going. So you want to look out for that one coming soon. Certainly not an issue to miss. So yes, there we go. Thanks to everyone tuning in. Again, just over 200 people at the peak. Very, very humbling as always. I thank you for your time joining in, inputting all your questions. I'm going to make one plea to you all again, guys, all watching. I'd love to get some guests actually on to discuss a couple of topics kind of in depth. If you're out there and you've got a conundrum going on in your pond, or you want some real in-depth advice, it's a lot easier to get stuck into when someone's firing the answers straight back, and the whole thing can evolve. I feel like it would add a lot of value to everybody. So feel free, drop us a line. I say it's not all that scary. It'd be good to get you in. And to everybody else watching, please support us in growing the channel. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It all helps us to help as many people as possible and help this amazing hobby grow. So thank you very much. And please don't forget, tune in tomorrow night for the Koi Talk live team putting on another show, and some nice topical debate. Magic. Thanks a lot, guys, and catch you soon.